Welcome. My name is Kahan Movagari, and I'm joined here by the former men's soccer coach of the JMU Dukes, Dr. Tom Martin. Dr. Tom Martin spent 29 years coaching the Dukes, and he has an extensive track record throughout the years and knows the ins and outs of the recruiting industry and the business. So we're very fortunate to have his kind of expertise today. So we're just going to ask him a quick series of questions. Thank you so much for coming on today, Doc.
My pleasure.
So our first question is, what are certain things that an athlete can do to stand out in such a competitive recruiting environment?
Well, there's a lot of abilities you have to have, but the first one is visibility. You have to be seen. You have to get in the right events that showcase your abilities. And that's where visibility comes into play, whether it's camps, whether it's tournaments, whether it's top flight teams in competition. You have to work to help provide yourself that ability to be seen. And that ability to be seen is multiple times. One doesn't do it. You may see a guy or a girl on a day where everything is all wrong, but there's a reasonable explanation. They may have had SATs that morning.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get what you really see just on one time. It's got to be multiple times. They may have a bad match against a great opponent. You've got to see him multiple times. And seeing on videos is a substitute. Nonetheless, for certain coaches it may work, but I always like to see people live and see them multiple times.
You definitely get a more personal feel for it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, great. So our next one is, what kind of connections have you made in the industry that have really helped you bring in the kind of star athletes you're looking for?
They were relatively, I don't want to say easy for me, but I over the years I played with a number of very good players, and those are the people that I went to first when I started coaching. Look, here's my position. This is what I'm looking for. Can you help me? And go from there. And that's where I started. And then it filters into developing relationships with coaches that are out there, coaching club teams and high school teams. And then it segues a little bit further into your former players. That they know what your program's about and your institution is about. I think you have to rely on them a lot. No coach out there is going to give a poor recommendation for his player. But factor in seeing them on multiple occasions, getting good feedback from contacts that you trust, and the trust element is it's really huge. It's like you never get a bad letter of recommendation on somebody, but you want to be able to trust that recommendation. And you develop that rapport over the years that their players that end up with you on your team or your program end up being what they are, but you also end up being what you are supposed to be.
Yeah.
And what that translates to is kids are successful, kids are happy, they're satisfied, and from a college athletic standpoint, your retention rate becomes very high.
At the end of the day, there's more to it too. So
there is. I'm in a sport where I think the NCAA statistic is less than 2% of college athletes become pros. Soccer is probably even less. You don't have the incentives of the NFL, the vast opportunities of Major League and minor league baseball, and the financial incentives. So you really have to, and they don't all look this way, but you really have to look down the road. Where are you going to be at 30 or 35? Not where you're going to be at 24 or 25. It's different. It's different.
We'll go into our last question here. This has been great. I wish we could have you a little bit longer. But what kind of red flags do you look for or not look for when recruiting an athlete? What kind of things will stick out, whether it's character related or if they're maybe on social media doing something?
Identifying the talent is the easy part, right? It's getting to the next stage where you can get a conversation going, you can develop a rapport with the players, and at the same that you're recruiting, and at the same time you're following up on your rapport with coaches and other references to try and identify, are there any red flags? Are there any yellow flags? And there's a difference. A yellow flag, to me, is a workable flag. There may be something that you may notice. You don't like their demeanor towards the referees, for instance. That may be a correctable thing. If it's a red flag, you want to stay out of that. At least I would, because those are the ones that I would deem that you can't work with. And there are red flags out there, but everybody can change. You can modify behavior in a lot of different ways. And sometimes when kids are in a different environment, things change. For instance, almost every college athlete has come from being a pretty big fish in a little pond. That's a good analogy to use. But once you move up and you jump into college athletics, regardless of what division it is or what sport, all the players are good. All the girls are good in lacrosse. All the girls are good in track. All the guys are good at this. Whatever. You could use whatever example that you want. And all people don't adjust to that environment. That takes a while for that association and assimilation to occur. And if you have some flags that are out there, I would not call them flags necessarily. I would call them maintenance things. If players happen to be high maintenance, he or she are not necessarily going to make that smooth transition and fit in. But again, some of them are very workable. Yeah. An individual may come from an environment where the competition is not very good, or the game that they're just getting into is just in its infancy. The coaching may not be as strong as you would like it compared to maybe your club situation or your high school situation. So how players respond to that may be something that you can modify and you can really improve upon. Over the years, I've taken that gamble on a lot of people, but you want to try and decide, is it worth it? You know, are there things that you can modify? In today's society, there's so many things that are out there that can give you that yellow or red flag or an indication there may be some maintenance factors. What's being posted on social media? Are they consistent in their training? Are their grades good? Are they on track to do that? There's a lot of indicators.
Some different little pieces come together.
There are. You're exactly right. And in the end of the day, that's why trying to develop a real good picture of that person involves not just watching them play and saying, this is the best player in the field, whether it's a football player, basketball player, soccer player, whatever. I honestly think that's the easy part. A good trained eye can identify who has talent. It's all those other pieces that lead you to the real big question, in my mind, the crucial question is, are they a good fit for your program and your institution?
That's the goal.
Talent alone does not make it a good fit. And I'll give you a very simple example. All coaches have to be able, in the recruiting process, to get many more no's than yeses. Because you may recruit 30 or 40 people to try to get a class of 6 or 7. They're not all going to end up at your institution, right? But some kids may want an urban environment. JMU, for instance, is not an urban environment. I would call it a college town environment. A lot of it is a relationship between the university and the community. Some kids may want a environment on the other side of the country. They want to go to California. They want to go to Florida for the weather or something like that. They may not be a good fit for your experience here. That's part of the right fit. Can they not get their major? Can they get that program of study that they really want? And all those pieces, along with many more, come into making that the right fit. Do they get along with the kids that are already there? Yeah. Is there a good relationship? And there's no way that you can predict that 100%, but doing things in the recruiting process, like getting them to visit, to meet your players, you can get feedback both ways. They get feedback, oh, maybe I don't like these players. Or your players may say, oh, maybe he or she won't fit in. I think if you're talking about the entirety of a program, you have to value that. And that comes back to what you asked me, are there red flags or the high maintenance things? In today's technologically advanced lifestyle, you know, you may hear that there's some bad things on social media or other things like that you want to research and track down. And it's not easy, but all those pieces have to come together. And then you have to also, I believe, that many times you have to work with the family, because it's a we approach, you know. You may like this school, but the family may be more comfortable with another school or something like that. And you don't just recruit a player. Sometimes you recruit a family. I used to like it when families would come to visit JMU and they'd bring little brothers and little sisters, because sometimes they don't reserve their judgment or their emotions as much as maybe somebody else would. And you can see on their faces, wow, look at this place. And especially if you take a tour of something like UREC, it's a whole we thing. And I think that's important too, to get the right fit. Because ultimately, whatever sport it is, you want your players to come to your institution, you want them to contribute, you want them to develop, you want them to get better, you want them to be happy, You want to prepare them for the next stage of their life because they're not probably going to be pro athletes. You may not like to accept that, but that's the reality of it. But that fit has a lot to do with that. You know, what level of competition are you playing? All those. There's so many variables. I could go on and on. But it's
all these factors.
It's that fit. And sometimes those factors are the ones that weed a person out or put a person in the pool as a potential player. And you don't want to make a rush to judgment either with a real quick decision. Just because you see an individual play poorly one day doesn't mean that's what you get every day. And that's what I mean, seeing it multiple times. You know, a lot of coaches like people that are the best player on the field or kids who come from winning programs. And those are all very good things to look at. But there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle that you have to put in there. And it takes time. You know, for instance, the NCAA rules might have changed, but it used to be when a child started, when a young person started classes for the 9th grade, they were technically an NCAA recruited athlete. That it may have been moved back since I've been out of coaching to even further. But coaches start watching kids at younger and younger ages, and you want a lot of time to be able to make a good choice on the individual you're looking at, and they can make a good, wise choice on the school that they go to, and you don't rush to judgment. But that takes time. It's a cultivation process. We develop a rapport with that person and get them to visit your school and get them to get a feel. If all the other dots are dotted and T's are crossed, I think the last piece, and maybe the most important, is it the right feel? Every student needs to feel that that's the right environment for them, and that should be a big factor in their decision, whether it's an athlete or not. I like that one the most. In the recruiting process, I think that holds as much weight as anything. At the end of the day, that potential student athlete has to say, it just felt like the right match for me. And then your probability of it working out is a lot better.
Well, there you have it. It's all about the fit, guys. So thank you so much. Doc Martin, thank you for your time. We really appreciate you and your wise words. Thank you.
More than welcome.
Appreciate it.